This episode is brought to you in part by you. That's right, you. You're the reason we do this. Without you, we would just be talking to ourselves, which is boring. We've been doing that for years. That's why we're asking for your support. If you follow us on social media already, thank you so much. But if you don't and you're new to the podcast, take some time, scope us out on social media, and leave a review wherever you listen. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Now, on with the show. Welcome to 5339. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Nick. Today we're talking to Shane Miller.
This is probably one of the best discussions. No, not the best, but it's up there with one of those, like, I don't know, whenever we're like getting together guests and everything, it's just kind of...
It was just three cycling tech nerds nerding out.
Yeah, which a big warning. We did nerd out pretty big on this one.
Hardcore nerd.
Before we talk to him, what's new with you, man?
Kind of a big couple of things since the last episode. Passed 6,000 miles in a year for the first time ever, which is pretty exciting.
Well done.
I took 2 days off the bike intentionally because I didn't want my 6,000th mile to be indoors, and I couldn't ride outside Monday and Tuesday this week, so I didn't ride and got my 6,000
on the group ride.
I did. That wasn't actually because of not wanting to get my 6,000th outside. It was because I had a family dinner.
Family and stuff.
So yeah, it was my biggest year yet. It's still more to come. Hopefully 65 by the end of the year.
That's a big get. That'll be good.
Well, I usually get over 500 a month, so
okay.
We still have a month to go in the year. You should be happy though. I did my first true gravel ride this weekend.
I know. I haven't actually talked to you since. So how was it on actual gravel other than a really inappropriate front chain ring size?
Yeah, so I did realize that I'm very inefficiently geared for true gravel riding. At least Pittsburgh true gravel riding. Now, if we were somewhere else and you didn't have the inclines, you could get away with road compact. It was 25 miles, and I think it was 2,800 feet. So we were over 100 feet per mile.
Southwest, like Claysville.
Yeah, we started in Claysville and just did a big loop. I
love riding down there.
I didn't do the long loop, and I'm glad I didn't. I would have not had the legs to do that with the gearing that I had.
Okay.
Because that loop was 39 miles with like 48 or 4,900 feet.
And that was with the Sweetwater gang?
Yeah, shout out to the Sweetwater crew. You know, Laura, our condolences to you. Laura lost her dad earlier this week, so our condolences go out to you and your family. But Dawn was there, her husband. If you guys are in the Pittsburgh area and are looking for a local bike shop, stop in to see the crew up at Sweetwater.
It's collectively, I know Nick and I don't usually agree on a whole lot, but we both love that shop.
Yeah. The one thing I thought about, though, this weekend while I was riding gravel was like, I know you really enjoy gravel riding.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
No, I was actually really shocked at how much you enjoy it, because it doesn't seem like the type of riding you would overly enjoy, because it's not necessarily the fastest.
No, it's not fast, but I enjoy the challenge of it.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're going up a 5% incline on non-packed gravel, it feels like you're going up like 10.
It's kind of like TT for me, right? So, like, I mean, you opened up the question, so.
Well, no, I intentionally didn't bring this up until we were recording because I wanted to hear your candid response.
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like TT. Like, it brings that certain level of like hurt and pain that you don't really get in a lot of places. TT obviously has a different level of, or different like timing, or like.
Yeah, you definitely know it's going to hurt, but you also know that it's only going to hurt for so long.
It's going to be the last 10 minutes, and it's going to be.
Well, what I mean is, like, it's going to hurt, but like, you know, it's only going to be like a 30-minute or a 45-minute effort. Whereas, gravel riding, it's going to hurt for a while.
But in small batches. It's going to hurt
absolutely.
Because I'm going up 17%. Like, we get to the top of the hill, and you're like, hell yes, I did.
We did it. The third or fourth climb we did was double digits for almost a half a mile.
Oh fuck!
Fortunately, it was paved. Fortunately, it was paved, because the first two climbs we did were not paved. They were true gravel.
Yeah.
And
did you guys go through the state game lands just outside of Claysville?
Honestly, I'm not that familiar with the area off of 70.
Was there a gun range halfway through your ride?
There was a gun range that I passed going to the park.
Okay.
So I think we actually went south and west of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that route. Tyler and I did that a few years ago whenever they were putting in some like well pad service areas.
Yeah. Sweetwater was really using this ride as a kind of a recon for Whiskey Rebellion ride in May.
Yeah.
So if any of y'all are interested in joining that event in May, I think it's like the 22nd or 23rd, whatever that weekend is in May.
Be sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're going to have 3 routes. There's the long route's like 130-mile loop.
Holy crap.
There's I want to say there's like a 25-mile and like maybe a 50-mile somewhere. So there's some options.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that in the spring, and fun trip. Last thing is that, last episode you guys heard me talk about a new saddle. Andrew, I don't know if you experienced this with new saddles, but like I got the position approximately correct compared to the other saddles that I have.
Yeah.
But do you notice the first ride's like kind of uncomfortable?
It's terrible.
And then the second ride, it's like I didn't make any adjustments. I was like, oh, I'm home. I'm good.
It's like I don't know what it is, but yeah, I have experienced that with a few saddles. Not with my. Why am I blanking on the name of the saddle I ride?
The one that I gave you.
Yeah, but it was also I had the older model on the Le Mans before that.
Oh, it's a Pro logo. It's a Kappa Space.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. But
138 mil, if anybody wants to know.
That's my sits, man.
Yeah, it was just funny because so I don't think I mentioned it on the last podcast, but I did get a Sella Italia Model X green. And
Sella? I don't know. How do you pronounce that?
I always thought it was Sella Italia, but
Sile.
Next episode I might be apologizing for mispronouncing that like I did Campagnolo.
Fortunately, we only have like 2 listeners in Italy, so
But it's a slight scoop saddle with a short nose and a cutout, which is very similar to the Bontrager Aeolus that I use. Same dimensions. The only difference is the scoop on the Bontrager is actually a little bit more pronounced,
and it's cheaper.
Yeah, the Model X green was $55, which is an awesome buy.
That's insane. Wasn't the Bontrager like 100?
Yeah, it's like 90. So,
wow.
And the Model X green was available. It took like a month to come in, whereas my last Bontrager took 6 months to come in.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. So, just wanted to share that with people that are trying out saddles. If it doesn't feel right the first ride, give it a second ride, and then because I went out to the Panhandle, just did a Zone 2 ride, and I was like very uncomfortable. I went out the next day with the mayor, and
just fine.
Yeah, I was like, I'm good. Huh. I'm at home. Like, I kind of want 2 more of these just to have all the saddles match. But
is it couples retreat? Yes, Astastic.
I haven't seen that in a while. I was like, where are you going with that? Oh yeah, that's right.
Astastic.
Yeah, I gotcha. What's new with you?
Well, a lot. I have officially less than 30 days now until my riding is going to take a major pause in a big way. I went to the orthopedic and didn't get the news that I quite wanted. But in some ways, it's good. You
have a plan.
I will. What's that?
You have a plan.
Yeah, there is a plan in place. So I'm having surgery on my collarbone. My bones suck at doing what they're supposed to do, aka healing. So on December 23rd, I will be undergoing surgery and getting plated and screwed.
Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, exactly. But I did have an interesting encounter, and I didn't tell you this on purpose. I was driving to go biking, and this vehicle pulled out right by the orthopedics office, and I thought nothing of it, and I wasn't moving super fast, but enough that I went past them, and I made eye contact with the individual in the vehicle, and then immediately went back to driving. And then I see this out of my passenger mirror. I see this black vehicle speeding up, and I was like, what does this person do? I hate whenever people are in the right-hand lane and they speed up to pass you or whatever. Not that it was a highway, but I turn and I look, and it's my orthopedic surgeon, and he's pointing at me and pointing at the bike that's on the back of the vehicle, and then pointing at me again, and he just shakes his head, and I just shrug my shoulders, and he just starts laughing uncontrollably.
Yeah, but at this point, like, is it really going to do anything since we know you're having surgery?
No, and that's basically like, I think he was just kind of giving me a hard time.
Because you've had some very frank conversations with him about what you need to do and how you need to take care of yourself in order to heal. And I think at this point we've kind of realized that you have a free pass until the 23rd.
I will say, yeah, so a few people in that office do actually listen to this podcast now, which is kind of funny, but we do have a plan, and I can thank Tyler and a few other people for, Nick, and I'm sure Trish had a heavy influence whenever we stopped to see you at the tailgate. There is a plan. All of my bikes are going to be leaving my house, going over to Tyler's place. And after 3 weeks, I'll get my road bike back.
With no rear wheel, which is
with
the best
no
part.
Rear wheel to ensure that, and all of my spare rims are going over there too, to ensure that I don't, I only ride it on the trainer. And after 2 weeks of that, I will get my rear wheel back.
Assuming the thumbs up comes from
the thumbs up
ortho.
Comes from the ortho. And then probably like 10 weeks after that, I'll be comfortable.
Yeah.
To ride the mountain bike.
I'm glad you have a plan. I'm going to miss riding with you for however long it's going to be, but we'll have Zwift.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I got 272 miles to go before I hit 6,000. So, breaking my collarbone kind of took me back a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get that in before the 23rd and round out the 6K for the year. I know both of us, that was our goal whenever we first started the 2021.
Yeah. Well, it was my goal last year, and because of my 2 weeks mandated off the bike for medical reasons, I was short by 150 or 200 miles. So
yeah, but we do have some really funny questions.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you guys all send in questions, because I really enjoy seeing what you have to say. Some of them are very, very entertaining, especially the names the usernames that you come up with.
So the first question, and this is mainly for Nick because he's more of an expert than I am on it, because I hate it. But it's from George in Huntsville, Alabama. Screen name, George O'Day Jungle 72. Well done. What do y'all think of erg mode? And it does say y'all. I was not paraphrasing there.
I'm a big fan of it at times. I do understand, though, why you would not want to use it. So what I think is good about erg mode is it's nice to just be able to do a workout and pick your cadence and just let the smart trainer do the work to figure out the resistance to get the target power numbers that you need. But, and we kind of discussed this with Shane in the interview, so you can hear a little bit more about it there. There is definitely a benefit to generating the power yourself and not relying on the trainer to have the power locked in for you. And what I mean by that is, if you're on level mode and the gear ratios that you're in require you to have a cadence of 90 to get the power target that you want, like, you have to spin the pedals at 90 to get there. If you drop a pedal stroke or two, your power numbers are going to drop. So, if you're training for a TT event or something like that, or any kind of an event where you need a very specific power, I think the level mode's probably going to be more beneficial for you.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to actually say. Like, for TT and like really specific applications where you need to hit a certain zone to accomplish a certain goal, that's where erg mode is not necessarily the best option. It's still good for specifically for like if you have a lot of trouble like trying to get your zone 2 rides in and things like that.
The other thing I like about erg mode is if you're doing interval workouts, it adjusts much quicker than you're going to be able to adjust. I mean, so that's the one thing I don't like about level mode when you're doing workouts is sometimes it can be a challenge to find the right combination of gear ratios, cadence to actually get the power number that you want. Whereas if you're going back and forth between different power levels, a good smart trainer is going to make that adjustment within 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty, and like especially the main ones like anything from TACX, Elite Wahoo, and
Saris. Yeah. Our next question is more for you, Andrew, but I have a comment before I let you get the response. The username is not Nanook of the North 86. This is for Andrew because Nick apparently does not get cold. It's effing cold. How do I stay warm? For the record, I do get cold.
He does. I've seen it happen.
I do get cold. Ironically, the coldest I've been is actually when I was overdressed. But I do get cold. The difference is I'm more comfortable being cold than a lot of people are. Yeah. So I can handle being colder more. But Andrew, how do you stay warm?
So
other than riding indoors?
Yeah, riding indoors is the best way to stay warm.
It's also the best way to be bored. I mean,
Yes, it is.
I get, I like Zwift and everything, but I still prefer to be outside unless I'm racing on Zwift.
So, I stay warm in a variety of ways. So I have, for those that know what it is, Raynaud's. It's an issue with the, circulatory, and things get really painful and cold.
It's just another reason for me to make fun of you. It's okay.
Yeah. No, hey, bring it on, man. Yeah.
It's 60 degrees and he's got foot booties on. I'm like, dude, you're such a wimp.
I only do that at like 55 and it's raining, but
it's all right. That's still lower than what Gary goes out. And I think my friend Gary's cutoff is 60 degrees.
Yeah, I'd be cool. But so
we'd never ride.
There's a few little tricks that I do. Wind blocking layers are crucial whenever you're trying to stay warm, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So what I do a lot of the time is I ensure that I either have like a vest, or some call it a gilet, that is wind blocking, and then a thermal layer either underneath of that. But for the most part, whenever it's like below 40, what I do is I have overboots. In between the overboot and the shoe, I usually stick a toe warmer in there on top of the shoe, but underneath the overboot layer. That way it provides a little bit of, the overboot does block the wind and precipitation and things like that, but it's going to provide a little bit more warmth that you get. So that way my toes don't get painfully cold. And then from that up, usually I have a thermal layer on. I did just invest in a pair of bibs that are thermal. They're light winter. They're thermal-ish, yeah. They're still considered light winter, but for me, that's a really good application because it's a little bit thinner thermal. It's just like a wind-stopping layer on the calf and front of the leg. But for the knee and thigh and hip, it's a thermal layer, so it's still wind-blocking, low-pile fleece almost. And then up, I have a sweat absorption base layer, and then a jersey. Whether that jersey is a thermal jersey or not, that's kind of dependent on how cold it is. I do have two long sleeve jerseys. One's a thermal, like very typical. The other one's actually a wool blend, which is for whenever it's really cold. I wore it the other day and it was like 50, and I was sweating unbelievably hard. I was having trouble keeping my heart rate down because I was so hot.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get cold really quick when it's chilly out. You bring up really good points with the wind breaking layer on top. The other big tip is hands and feet. If you can keep those warm, you're gonna stay much more comfortable. And actually, one of the guys on the ride on yesterday for the gravel ride, because it was pretty chilly yesterday. It was like 30 and windy yesterday.
It was. I was gonna go for a ride at 6:30 in the morning. Got up, walked out on my front porch, turned around, and went back to bed because it was.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But this is a good hack if you don't have if you're looking for a slightly heavier pair of gloves, is to actually put latex gloves on underneath your winter gloves. It's not something I would recommend for long rides, but if you're inside of 2 or 3 hours, it's a really good way to keep your hands warm without spending $150 or $200 on the next level of winter gloves, because winter gloves can get pretty pricey pretty quickly.
Yes. I have two gloves that I use. One is a Convertible Mitten.
They're cute. His mom knitted them for him.
No, she didn't. It's actually a runner's glove specifically. So it has a nice booger wiper on the thumb, and
booger wipers are important for cold weather riding.
And then it has a thing that you pull over the fingers so that just the wind blocks out. It actually does a really good job. And then I call my ninja gloves. Swix made this really possible with skiers. So those that ski know Swix, but basically it's like the nanu glove. I don't even know what the heck it's called, but it's like a mitt, but not. So you still can have like lever control and pretty finite dexterity.
Yeah.
But they're still like
Yeah, I have two sets of gloves too. I have it's really kind of the lighter of the two is really just like a soft shell kind of material. So it's really good for like 40s, maybe 50s if it's like a cool 50s, or if it's like a really sunny day in the 30s. And then I have a heavier set that I'll wear down in the 20s. I probably need to get a slightly heavier set just in case, because I don't mind riding in like the low 20s, and these gloves are not quite ready for that. But yeah, if you keep your hands and feet warm and get some wind blocking layers for your core especially, and you actually can go a lot further with the cold than you think you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't underestimate over boots. They may look stupid and they may be a little weird, but
yeah,
they really do help.
And it's honestly, it's a lot of trial and error. So
yes.
know that you're going to make mistakes on overdressing and underdressing, but just kind of, some people actually keep a record, like a journal of what the weather conditions were like and what they wore, and then how they felt after the ride.
Yeah.
I don't personally do that, but I do know some racers that'll do that, and that way they know how to dress for races, which is I think a really good idea. So,
yeah.
But let's, we've certainly chatted for a while here for the intro. If anybody's still awake, Shane Miller is a YouTuber out of Australia who has really made a mark for himself as a PowerMeter indoor trainer, kind of a guru. Like, I really like how he does his testing on the products. He doesn't offer objective opinions. He doesn't offer subjective opinions. He's really objective with it. Like, he lets the numbers the numbers speak for themselves. He's got a couple of power meters that he trusts, and he kind of compares everything to them. I know I personally have made a purchase because of him, and Andrew has regrettably made a purchase in not taking Shane's advice.
No, I did take Shane's advice on the ASIO.
No, I know, but I'm making fun of your power meter or your indoor trainer purchase.
Yeah, regrets.
So, Shane's a really good guy. Looking forward to having him on again. I think we'll probably do some collaborations with him on some indoor training at some point in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so we hope you enjoy this one. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us. I know that we do go into specifics here with some of the jargon and lingo. So I know that can be a little bit daunting to understand, especially whenever you're first getting into indoor and understanding power meters, and the fact that we went on for as long as we did about power meters. Do not hesitate to reach out to us, either if we're in the group ride on Discord or whatever. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions regarding that. So without further ado, you ready to talk to Shane?
Let's chat with Shane.
Welcome to 5339, a podcast about cycling for cyclists by non-pros. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show, Shane Miller or the GP Llama. Are we allowed to call you that?
Yeah, Llama. People just shortened my name to Llama. I'll respond to that.
You're like Madonna now, just one name.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on, guys. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, so we both, Nick and I, have been watching your channel, and mainly for data side of things is what we love. You're very specific, and whenever you review a product, it's very objective, I guess. Mm-hmm. And you come at it from a very like science angle, and for us that's kind of important, because a lot of the times whenever you see products and things like that, it's like, okay, how much are they being persuaded to say this?
And you let the numbers do a lot of the talking, which we appreciate.
That's it. Like, a power meter doesn't have an opinion. It doesn't have feelings. It just simply reports the numbers that you're doing. You put two power meters next to each other, and I can dress it up with, I think it's doing this, or I think this is why it's happening. But at the end of the day, you can almost mute any of my videos and just look at the data, and you'll get the result. So they're very easy, and they don't talk back either. So they're great. Like, there's no power meters in any comment section. So that's a good thing.
I have always thought, what if we like hook like an Arduino up to like a power meter, and like whenever you hit like over 800 watts or something, it started to go ow, ow, ow. But
I've heard some smart trainers scream. Don't worry, they do have they do have a conscience, I'm sure.
So where did you kind of get started in cycling? Because obviously your love and passion for it's very clear in your videos.
It started off very, very young, I guess like all of us. Okay, here's my first bit of bike tech. That one of the very first memories I had is that when I was 4 or 5 years old, I lived in country Victoria. We just got around by bike. We could ride out in the middle of the road. There was hardly any cars. We just biked around everywhere.
Sounds like utopia.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's still like that now, but on gravel, we just have to go away from the sealed roads.
Yeah.
But my mum bought me a little tiny odometer, and it's a little thing that sort of ticked around on the front wheel, and it ticked over.
The manual one with the worm gear?
Yeah, exactly that. And it ticked over, and this was like, okay, like as if the further I go, the higher the number goes, and I'm like, right. So if that little red number goes up to 9, it'll tick over to the 1, and I've done 1 kilometer. So then I rode around and around our very small block until I rode 1 kilometer. So I guess that's where my interest in tech started. I wanted to know, was that accurate? No, actually, I didn't worry about that at that time.
You're like, no, I don't care. Just get it as high as it'll go.
Exactly right. So it was just, and from there on, I've been riding bikes to school, and then we moved town to a bit of a larger town, and then I was always riding bikes to and from school for that. It's just the quickest way to get around. And then as soon as I got my car license, I kind of stopped riding a little bit, and then went to university. My background is IT. I did a Bachelor of Computing back in 99 or 97, I think. Yeah, 97 through 99, 3-year degree here in Ballarat, where the town I'm still in now.
Okay.
And sort of took up cycling just as a bit of a fitness thing. And then I had a little loop that I used to ride around and used to time myself for. And then that was a bit of fun. Moved to Melbourne for about 15 or 16 years because that's where the jobs were in IT during the boom time. And I was riding to and from work. Somebody pulled up next to me, sort of riding along one day, and went, "Do you actually race or anything?" Or I'm like, "No, just like hammering along." They're like, "Come down and race." So I went down, checked out the racing, went and bought a road bike, and the rest is history. I went and raced a few times and got hooked to that. So raced like a lot for about the last 15 years. And that's just, the natural progression there is just to put my two passions together with IT and bikes. And the crossover is huge now, especially with these power meters and this connectivity. And trainers are now talking TCP/IP protocols. I'm like, hell yeah, this is my two worlds combined. So
just wait to get to 169, and then you're going to be like, oh no. That's a really nerdy reference right there, but
many of our listeners are still listening.
Yeah.
What was your first road bike then?
First proper road bike, was a giant OCR1. Back in 2003, it had Shimano 105, Shimano pedals. So it's pretty much wherever you start, that's kind of where you still, what you go with. So I still love my Shimano pedals, even though there's a few different models out now and different form factors and things we use for our power meter pedals. But I'm still a Shimano guy. SRAM on the gravel side of things, but that's different altogether. But the bike was too big for me. It wasn't fitted up properly. Had a pretty ordinary experience buying the bike because it's just, the customer service, it can be hot and cold. That was a bit suboptimal. But just fell in love with riding, and some guy called Lance was riding on telly, some guy in a yellow jersey and winning and, really boosting cycling at the time back in 2000.
First time I've heard of him before.
Yeah, who is this guy?
I don't know. He's gone from the history books now, so I don't know his real results. But yeah, that's my history of cycling, just like ridden all my life. And there's just nothing, even to this day. Last night I was out, the sun was setting. If you check out my Strava, there's some great sunset shots there. Going as hard as I could, riding my bike on gravel, nearly falling off on one of the corners and scaring the absolute crap out of myself. Same as day one. Same as day one. I'm still learning too.
I'm sure with a big grin on your face the whole time.
Oh, hell yeah.
Going down in a corner is never ideal. Just
somebody just separated or just broke their collarbone 6 weeks ago because of that.
I've done 4 collarbones in my racing career.
Does it get better?
Well, you know where to park at the X-ray place, and because when you go to a hospital, you're like, well, I don't know where to park. I've got this. Where do I? I've got to go through this door. I knew the process at the end, and I knew how to get the rebates, and I knew. It was all good.
That's awesome.
Andrew and I were on a group ride, and he took a turn a little too quick and found gravel on a paved road, and the rest is history.
Yep.
So obviously the racing scene was a big part of your life. Still decent part of your life. You're still racing a little bit.
Not outdoors or not indoors. Was I burnt out? I don't know. If Zwift didn't come along in, say, 2015, I probably would have hung the bike up because I didn't see much of a progression in technology. Look, to be honest, power meters really haven't changed since when did I get into power? 2006 or 7. Yeah, I was breaking power. I was breaking power taps before people knew what power taps were. So Saris weren't too happy at the time. Look, outdoors I raced quite a lot, and I really focused. I took a few years full time. I was pretty lucky to be able to take some time off work and between contracts to really focus on riding. I got addicted to time trials. I love the control of a time trial. You never miss a break rate in a time trial.
Are starting to get into that.
There's so many things you can tweak. There's so many things, and it's all for the individual. Like helmet testing, wind tunnel testing, tire pressures, tires, bikes, positions, everything too. Just FYI. It's just and pacing, and that we can use a power meter to pace properly. And yeah, so I did quite well. I ticked all the boxes. I think I've got about 15 national masters or age group titles. So won our little Tour de France, our amateur Tour de France. It's called Tour of Bright, which is a 3 or 4 stage, very hilly race with a time trial in it. I've won that twice for the Masters group. So I ticked all the boxes, and we were training for the following year. And I'm riding up this hill. It's a 20-minute hill. I'm sitting on 380 watts at about 70 kilos. So that's about my limit. And, the hurt box you've got to be in. And I was about 5 minutes from the top of this hill, and we're still just training for the race that was coming up. I'm like, you know what? I've won this one before. I've done this. This really hurts. And there's a nice warm coffee shop at the bottom of this hill where my wife is sitting at the moment. So I spun around, I rolled back and went, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I've ticked all the boxes there.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my outdoor racing done. There's nothing more to achieve. I'm never going to turn pro. And I'm too old for that. But I ticked all the age group titles and things like that. So anything I could target, I'd already achieved. And that's where Zwift came along. And that was just nuts. I represented Australia in both Vegas and over in the UK for the esports side of things. I got second in Vegas. So I've performed on stage in Vegas. I can say that. That's kind of cool. But that's so intense too. Like Zwift racing or indoor racing is just an insanely white hot. The fitness you need for that, it's like, think of sort of a road race is one thing, a time trial is another. Criterium sort of steps it up again with a constant attacking. Zwift is a time trial plus criterium plus no coasting. It is just so hard. And one of the things people don't talk about cycling and a few other endurance sports is the pain you go through. Yeah. We get addicted to that. We get used to that pain. It's uncomfortable. It really is. And sometimes you just want to like, you know what? I'm just going to sit it back and drop it down a gear, slow it down and just enjoy. So that's probably my last few years. So it was like last few years, there's been a few gravel rides and a few gravel events that I've done that have been great. But as long as I'm fit enough to test these power meters to the point of, what a decent level cyclist can test them at. So if my sprint's still around 1,200 to 1,300 watts, I'm happy. If I can still put out 300 watts for, say, 5 to 10 minutes, I'm still happy. That's all I need to do now. So, competitive stuff. And then COVID came along and, racing just went out the door.
Yeah. we found actually a really cheap time trial bike this summer. And so there's a local series about 2 hours from us that they do 5 or 6 events a year. And Andrew did the last one for this year. I unfortunately was out of town for it, so I didn't get to do it, but we're on the search for another cheap time trial bike so that we can go heads up instead of have one of us on a road bike and one of us on the TT bike. Because as you said, positions everything. And
so if they loves that position.
If it's on the same course, you can go back and test yourself, and conditions will change, wind will change, but if it's a constant, if the constant conditions and the same course every single time, you can actually see your progression. But if you've got a power meter, you can also see the progression of power over that duration and your pacing. There's a place over in Perth in Western Australia has a great time trial series. So lots of good TT has come out of that area there because they've just got a series that runs probably 20 or 30 TTs a year, if not more. And they keep going back to the same course every few weeks. And that's just brilliant.
You really get to see your progression and everything.
Oh, yeah. And when you buy a new skin suit or buy a new helmet, that's free watts. Go there and go hard. The motivation is just so much greater.
Now, is it you talk about enjoying TTs a lot? Is it because of the kind of the nerdy tech side, or is it like that's kind of the type of riding that's your strength? Because I know for me, like I love the nerdy tech. Like, what's the fastest helmet? What can we tweak some more watts out of the position? But like that's my least favorite type of riding because I grew up playing hockey, so like I'm very punchy. Like let me push out 500 for a very short period of time, and then let me cool off for a couple minutes, and let me go back to 500, and then like that's my thing. Like Andrew's much more of the diesel engine that could just put out a number for a long time.
I enjoyed them early on because I was winning, and I continue to enjoy them because I continued to win. That might sound a bit big-headed, but it helps.
It's addicting.
It was also confirmation that, in a lot of things they say if you work hard, you'll achieve results. Cycling, that's not the case, especially road cycling. because you missed a breakaway, you can't ride a crosswind, you're uncomfortable with the bike. Something can happen. So you can put in a ton of work, or you just don't have it genetically. I mean, we're all limited. We all have that ceiling. Time trials can reward the work that you put in if you do it correctly. And then when you do hit that ceiling, and I was hitting the ceiling, I think my FTP, I think I got to about 360 at about 70 kilos or something like that. That's about my limit. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to get 400. I'm not going to get an FTP of anything over that, so it's not pro level. Where can I start adjusting things and improving? And that was within the equipment, data analytics, and me needing more coffee this morning to get my words out. Actually, there we go, caffeine. It's like having, what sort of caffeine levels do you take prior? I was sort of experimenting with no-dose. You get a certain, and talking to sports scientists about, okay, well, what's the recommended dosage of caffeine to get the right performance? And I was having no-dose, I think 5 minutes before a race, before a 20-minute time trial, rather than have coffee and then needing to pee. All of the details. And I'd get back from a time trial and I'm like, oh, how did I go? And then I was wired for the next hour because the caffeine kicked in too late. So then we started experimenting with caffeine chewing gum. I think it's the fastest to get. So you just chew the gum. Yeah. Out of the States, you guys have awesome caffeine stuff. Everything's caffeinated. It's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So
caffeinated cereal.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we need.
I don't know if that actually exists, but
it probably does
somewhere.
There you
go. Copyright that right now. Yeah.
Get your fiber and your caffeine all in one shot. Sorry.
Don't worry, the UCI will be onto that soon as well as your sock height. Yeah. But just the technology side of things. I like the progression in TT bikes. Road bikes were pretty similar. Like we've seen electronic group sets come along, but TT bikes, they were changing quite rapidly. Here in Australia, we have to wear certified helmets. We have the most strictest helmet laws in Australia. You have to wear a helmet on a bike when you're outdoors, and they have to be Australian, New Zealand certified. So Australia and New Zealand have this certification, which means it cost a lot of money to certify helmets. So for a few years there, we didn't have TT helmets. People were racing in normal road helmets. We got the jump. We were using skateboard helmets, with no vents. They tested faster. So we were a few seconds up on everyone anyway because we were using these Protec helmets like Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
So little tricks and tips like that. Plus TT suits, the fabric has changed. We were sort of on the cutting edge of that before everyone started taping their legs and putting trip wires down everything. Or trip lines. So it's a bit of fun.
But kinesiology tape on your shins.
That's the one. Yeah. But one of my friends said, but everyone else got fast. Everyone else got really, really fast because tire tech changed. We understood tire pressures more, and we weren't winning by as much, or sometimes we weren't winning at all. And one of my mates said, it's sort of like real estate. We got in early. We made our investments. We got in early. Now everyone else is in the game. I'm like, yeah, they are.
Now the Brits have that new Lotus bike on for the track, which is
that's ugly. That's ugly.
Yeah, but it is rapid, man. It is rapid.
Which side's the drivetrain on? Did they put the drivetrain on the opposite side again with that?
No, I think it's still on the right side of the bike. But I wouldn't be surprised if they tinkered with that too.
Somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they put the drive side on the left because technically it's moving less.
Yeah,
you're talking marginal gains.
The airspeed's going slower on the inside than it is on the outside
with the curves. Yeah.
No, I get the theory behind it. I never saw hard numbers on how much of an improvement it actually was.
Maybe there is something to fugly fast,
Fugly is fast. Is that the new Zwift logo?
I think it is. Yeah.
Hear that, Eric? We just TM'd your new motto.
Coming from the TT scene, because obviously I hate the term marginal gains because for me it's just whatever, push harder. Don't be such a word I can't use. But so all of your testing, like the Llama Lab tests and things like that you do now, did that kind of spawn out of that?
Well, it's hard to test anything aero because aero is everything outdoors. So indoors, aero, no. I was hoping to see more, the Xbox Kinect that has like the little visuals of you moving around. I was hoping to see that kind of technology bring indoors sooner. So you're looking at your frontal area. Everyone posts pictures of their time trial position sideways on a bike. They're like, oh, how's my aero position? I'm like, do you race sideways? Because that's pretty aero sideways. How do you look front on?
Yeah.
That's where I'd love to see the technology move towards that. But no, the Llama Lab test is more around just trainers and power meters. And that's an important one, I guess, for outside, because if your power meter isn't reading correctly, then you can throw yourself off big time. If your power meter reads, say, 10% high or 10% low, and then let's say you push above FTP, but you don't realize, you think you're having a bad day and mentally you think you can push through that, you're going to blow up. Or if your power meter is reading too high, you're not going hard enough. So it's really important to have correct data. A lot of people say power meter accuracy doesn't matter just as long as it's consistent. Yeah,
that's true if you only have one.
Correct. In isolation, that's correct. And my analogy there is if you were to build a house, if you would get a plan for building a house and you would build it by yourself and you had a ruler or a rule tape that was incorrect, but if you measured everything with that incorrect ruler or measuring tape, you could still build the house. The plans still work. But as soon as you bring in, so in isolation, if you bring in anything external, like a new door that's been built somewhere else, or if you try and introduce anything external to that, nothing's going to work. And that's exactly what happens with power meters. People say, look, I've got a consistent power meter, but it reads low. Great. You get another bike with another power meter, your numbers are shot. Doesn't work like that for power meters. So a lot of people will excuse this. There's lots of excuses for power meters being incorrect. And that should be one of them. Consistency as well. Consistency, if it's consistent, then it's just badly calibrated. Change it to make it accurate. Well, it's only one step away from making it accurate.
It seems like a lot of the new power meters have that as part of their firmware now. Is you can tick it up or down a little bit, and some I think are getting like even 0.5%. It'll really fine tune, which is pretty cool.
I think for Vero down to 0.1%. They're like crazy for that kind of accuracy. There is general hesitation around companies doing that. And I've been speaking to a company that says, look, no, we're not going to offer that because we want to keep straight down the line. Our power meters are accurate, give or take. That's it. Like they're 1%. Yeah. However, their power meter isn't. So I'm like, guys, what do we do with this? Like, I've had some power meters recently, I've had to scale up. The rival axis, well, N equals 1. I've only had one of those, but I had to scale it up 6%. The Sugi Axo power meter had to scale that up 3 to 3.5%. And then they were perfect. So power meters are really hard, especially when people are installing them themselves. You've got chainring bolts, crank bolts. You've got drivetrain. You've got what are they comparing it to? What are their testing methodologies? That's where the Llama Lab Test comes into its own. It's been developed over 4 or 5 years now. It's consistent and it will pick the nits out of anything. It does really, really well.
I like to say before I met Nick a few years ago, I was a pretty simple cyclist. I would just get on the bike and go.
You're still simple. Let's be honest.
I am simple, but now I have a smart trainer. I have the Asioma pedals and thanks.
You're also welcome.
It's like every time I talk to Nick, I open my wallet and money just flies out like birds. I'm just like, oh shit. All right. But whenever I was kind of getting into it, I was trying to figure out with the indoor training and things like that, where my power is. And, watching your videos, it was like you're saying that inconsistency. So, power indoor versus power outdoor, that difference as well. But the inconsistency that can occur is just, I don't know, hilarious. And I've experienced it a few times on I should have taken your advice on a certain trainer. It's green and it leans from side to side.
Oh, I think I've got one of those in a box here somewhere still.
Mine is
been out of the box for a while.
Mine's in a box in their main Minneapolis warehouse now. Ooh. So
interesting one about the power indoors and outdoors. One thing people will experience jumping on a smart trainer for the first time with a power meter that is accurate, they'll look down and go, my numbers are so low. I'm 10% lower indoors. What's going on? I can't push my FTP indoors. That's a common experience for a lot of people jumping indoors for the first time. A few factors there. Cooling is the number one factor. I think we can attribute that to a lot of people overheat indoors. Outdoors, you got the wind in your hair, if you've got hair, or the wind past your legs, past your torso. You're moving. It's more dynamic. You'll sort of attack a hill or you'll roll through something. You've just got more energy outdoors for just a higher power. But cooling is a big one for that. Also, the inertia of the trainer. How does it feel? Does it feel like you're pedaling through mud? Because if you were to go outside and say, okay, I can put out 350 up this hill, great. Can you put out 350 riding through sand? Can you put out 350 riding on sort of soggy grass? No, you can't, because it just feels wrong. It feels all different. And a lot of trainers have that sort of feeling to them. They're just a different pedal stroke. Although it's very small differences. If you train specifically for a certain task, like say time trialing, then that's different to training for say a hill climb. Different cadence, different muscle engagement. So people just have to realize that some trainers are better than others for simulating what they need to do, but it's also about gear selection and we can go deep in the weeds of how that all works. But trainers are getting better.
That's so true though. I guess I'm between Nick and I. He always laughs because I take the long approach or the incorrect approach, and then I adjust on the fly. But I've been through a few trainers as of recent because I wanted that, more dynamic motion. And I wasn't necessarily focused on trying to focus. My problem is once I do 30 minutes indoors, I'm just oh, screw this. I'm done.
And you can step off because you're indoors. You can just step off and go to the fridge. I find the same. That's why a 2-hour ride outdoors, you've still got to ride home. So there's a 3-hour ride if you've got a tailwind or, a 4-hour ride. So indoors is easy to step off.
If you stop, you're in the middle of nowhere and it's there's no beer fridge right here, following me.
Just start throwing them in your back pockets.
No thanks. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But like the indoor and outdoor and the ride dynamic. So, trying to get that feeling, and like, I was able to get longer rides in with that particular green trainer that I'm not going to say the name of. But the hilarity was whenever I hosted a meetup between some friends in Zwift, and I was at, I think it was like, we're doing Alp to Zwift, and I was on like segment like 10, and I started averaging like 400 or 500 watts, which for me, I can handle for a minute or two, or I think even 5 is probably my max. But like, I was like, wow, man, 45 minutes in, I'm finding the power. I was like, this is great. And then something happened, and I was just like, oh, I have no resistance. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. This is why I'm able to push it up this hill so hard. And then, the snowball effect. But yeah, there is that, like, that's the one thing that I think a lot of people neglect whenever they're looking at smart trainers, is that kind of ride quality and that kind of resistance thing. Because, Nick loves erg mode. I hate it.
I don't love it, but if I'm going to do my structure training, I'd rather it be in erg mode than level mode, because I don't want to have to fuss with trying to find the specific cadence and the specific gear combo that leads me to whatever the target is.
And for me, I like to think about everything. Like, I like to think about that kind of stuff as opposed to me thinking of literally about everything else. Did I lock the front door, or did I do this, or did whenever I brought things in from the car, did I close the hatch? Things like that. For me, it's like,
a lot of coaches won't prescribe erg mode because of that reason. Like, you need to run a process coming from an IT background. You need to run a background process in your head to say, hold those watts, hold those watts, hold those watts. Erg mode removes that. So if you go into a TT, if you don't have the ability to mentally hold that certain range or hold that certain pace because you've just always been using erg mode, that can be not to your. It can be detrimental to your performance.
It's funny you say that, because another Australian emailed me yesterday with the same exact thing. But the erg mode for establishing like baseline heart rate and like kind of float, it's beautiful.
Yep. Step tests and erg mode are brilliant. Yep, just ride. They don't get any simpler than that. Just ride until you don't. And the best part about the step test, FTP test, they're designed to fail. When you fail, you've succeeded, which is a great thing. Whereas if you fail in a normal erg mode session, you get the spiral of death. That's not success.
That thing. Did you experience that yet, Andrew, or did I just tell you about it? Because it's one of those things that sneaks up on you in the middle of a workout, and you're like, you missed one pedal rotation, and then down you go.
I did kind of. I had to do a drift test. So I was working with Cam a little bit. He's helping me kind of through my recovery, and now that I'm actually getting back into being able to put power into the bike without me crying like a child to drop their lollipop. So, and the first time I actually used erg mode, I was fighting it, right? So for me, I have that, I guess from what I've been told, is that kind of time trial mentality is I try to focus on a number. I know what watt is going to get me what speed and get me to the objective that I need to get for that 10K or 20K or whatever I'm doing. And so like for me, trying to get to like 320 is it's doable. And I want to try to get there, and I don't want the machine to necessarily do it for me. So oh man, ADHD is kicking in hard, but so like trying to focus on that was just not cool. And I was fighting erg mode so hard. Yeah. And I found myself, and I normally have a pretty low cadence, right? So like usually I'm around like 80. And
you get punished. Low cadence.
It hates
you
me.
Miss one pedal stroke, you're down to 75, and it says, "Hang on, no, more resistance." You're like, "No, wait," and then you just
you're at 40 standing on the pedals, and they're not moving.
I don't know what I was doing, but like somehow I ended up at like 90 or like 95, trying to like fight it to get to where I wanted, and then I realized that I can slow down a little bit, and because my heart rate was starting to float up artificially because my cadence was getting so fast. And it was just one of those things. I was like, oh, I had to go into like Neanderthal mode for myself and like not think and just pedal. And that was, and then I realized, oh crap, I just invalidated the last 54 minutes of this test. whenever you're evaluating products, right? How long do you review them? Like, are you doing like a couple month stints, or is it pretty quick? Or
all of the above. If something's not released, if something's not on the market, then it's however long I've got with it until it goes live. Within probably 2 or 3 minutes, I can tell whether a PowerMeter is accurate or a smart trainer is any good. I've just done so many of them now. I can look down at the numbers and go, okay, cool. I know how this is going to perform. It really depends. I've got some long-term reviews out there of certain tires, or I think I do a loop-back reviews on some things. Usually it's a few weeks. I don't want to go in cold with something though. Here's one Llama Lab test. Usually you get a bed-in ride done. You understand a product. A lot of the time I'll go back to a company rarely do I get something that just works. Rarely does that take place. So I'll usually go back to the company, get a firmware update, or check this or check that, or ask them. I've got a new way of asking, are my results valid? I ask the company, are my results unexpected? That's what I ask of them, because all the time they'll say, oh, no, you're doing this wrong, or you're doing this wrong. And I'll ask, okay, well, what was your testing protocol? What program, what did you test against? I will replicate exactly what you've done. A lot of them will come back to me with a protocol, or, we use the Garmin pedals, or we use the Vectors, or the Asiomas, et cetera, et cetera. But it's funny because I'll always put them to the sword with, well, you said plus or minus 1%. And a lot of people say, well, there's no standards out there. Companies do self-certify. That's a bit of a problem. There's no regulatory body, I guess.
And not all potentiometers are created equally.
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. Yeah. So though a watt is a watt, and that is measurable. But yeah, so to answer your question, it depends. It can be anything from a few days to a few weeks. Ideally, I want to get a ton of riding in. Today, I sent off 7 hours of data which is part of almost a 25 or 30-hour data set that I've got for an unreleased PowerMeter. Wow. So there's a ton of stuff that goes on. What you see, like what I present in my Llama Lab Test reviews or results, is usually just some of the standouts. Or if it's easy when a PowerMeter just works, or a trainer just works. It's like, okay, here we go. That's it. Same as all the others. When it doesn't work, or if it's a little low or a little high, again, that's easy. Here's what it's doing. Or if it's drifting with heat or something like that, here's what's happening. When a PowerMeter is both high and low, depending on how it's feeling or what the day is or the terrain I'm riding on, that's
I thought you said PowerMeters didn't have feelings.
Well, they don't communicate them very well.
They communicate in their own way.
Exactly. Yeah, in the numbers. Yeah. So it really depends. Also, I'll cover things that are pre-released too. Let's just say the Shimano new Di2 stuff that came out the other week. Everyone wanted to know about that. So I'm like, okay, well, I sort of picked out what's new within the first 30 seconds, and here's how it relates to, say, indoor training, knowing that the new 12-speed Shimano Road cassettes fit the 11-speed HG spline. So I was
so excited about that. I mean, neither one of us ride that group set, so it's not an issue for us. But it's just like, it just makes sense, because why would you make everybody's upgraded wheels obsolete just because now it's a 12-speed instead of 11-speed?
Let's not mention SRAM, but we've all adjusted to that.
Well, Andrew and I were talking. I'm like, well, then just use your old 11-speed Shimano and just throw the Shimano cassette on there, because it should, in theory, still be compatible.
Yeah. I'm always one for using the exact correct thing, because as soon as I do something showing it's a bit of a hack or a bodge, that the comments just go nuts. And the companies don't like that either. They're like, no, we're not. No, you can't do that.
Well, they never recommend it, but I mean, Shimano and SRAM have played well for quite some time now.
Yeah, yep. Although, if you look at all the SRAM documentation, when they are compatible with the Shimano HG, the Hyperglide, SRAM documentation never mentions the word Shimano, ever. They will say splined hub or something like that. And I caught them out of this. I'm like, I'm trying to look I've got a set of zip wheels that I need the Shimano hub for, but I can't find the Shimano hub. Like, oh no, it's called the splined hub or the splined HG compatible. I'm like, oh, come on, just make it a little easier for us. I'm just a consumer here. I just want to ride the wheels. I want to find the right part. But it's funny. It's funny.
Did you catch a lot of flack whenever you did the Asioma to SPD kind of hack?
That was an interest. Oh, actually, the SPD hack. Okay, that was an easy one. I thought you were talking about the SPD SL. That's a whole other Q factor.
No, that's
a problem. Yeah. SPD hack was a bit of fun because people wanted mountain bike power pedals.
Oh, hell yeah.
So when I saw that hack, I'm like, hang on, really? Does that actually work? And then I watched the thread over at Trainer Road, and it was Mike, somebody, I think I recall if it was Mike, whoever posted. I'm like, there was a few little videos on people just putting them together and showing how it works. I'm like, no, I'll do this. I'll do a good job of showing people exactly the step-by-step and what to order.
Yeah.
That went crazy. People love those pedals. So you do have to modify your shoe. That is a gotcha with those. And also I'm finding if you ride through grass or anything that sort of sticks up between the crank and the battery pod or the electronics pod, you'll get things stuck between them because there's only about a 1 mil gap. Yeah. So you can go lawn mowing with those things, which isn't ideal. You need to But that was a bit of fun. The company themselves weren't too, I mean, I know for very well. They were like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But I had to say, look, it voids warranty. I've got to make sure I tick all the boxes. Yeah. It voids warranty. You won't be supported. But at the end of the day, just swap the pedal bodies off and put your Shane Llama pedals or the other pedals back on if you ever have any issues. They won't know. They were pretty cool. But so I think it's pushed them to look at SPD pedals natively. But they needed to redesign that pod for that to take place because, that pod's just a little bit too big and mountain bike shoes get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you've kind of touched on this, and I think based on some of the reviews you've done, it seems like you're kind of part of the beta testing for these companies too. So you're getting pre-production or pre-release models to test, and then you're giving feedback. Like, I guess how did you get into all this? Because you've had a channel, and it looked like it was a personal channel way back when, and it's kind of morphed into this really good resource for bike tech and giving objective bike tech. So how'd you go from kind of just a personal page to, being in on the testing for pre-release products?
I was just consistent and persistent with what I did. So I just kept uploading, just sharing my knowledge. Early on, I told my story because I'm probably known as the YouTuber. Prior to that, I was known as the time trialer. Prior to that, I was known as the IT security guy. Prior to that, I was, God, I don't know what I was. But you sort of go through all these phases. So early on for the channel, it was about identifying myself as a cyclist first. Because people see me as a YouTuber. I didn't start the channel just to review things. I didn't start the channel to get free product. Like someone said the other day, they tagged me in a for sale post of a power meter. I'm like, God, the last thing I need is another bloody power meter. I do not need any more power. I don't need any more smart trails. I don't need any more bike tech. But I'm still interested in it. I'm still interested to see where it's heading. What changes? Where are companies going with things? So I guess it's just natural progression. Companies saw the amount of hits I was getting on a number of my videos and reviews. They're good and bad as well. I do a lot of stuff on Strava. I ripped into Strava the other day and Zwift for releasing local legends globally, which is just a waste of time. It was funny.
Done. I was so happy to see that, by the way. I was like, hell yeah, it's about time somebody said something because this is dumb.
Though, to be honest, I haven't got any emails back from my contact at Strava since that video. I'm like, I hope it had a soft landing. Oh, by the way, can you do this? Oh, I've got a few questions about this. They haven't spoken to me since. But it is, I mean, the amount of emails I got from people left field in the industry, people we all know, and from companies we all know, they're like, thank you for making that video. Rarely do I make a what I call a bitch and moan video where I just sit here and cry like a 2-year-old. And, I don't like this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to call this out. But in doing that, I also offered here's what would be cool. Like live segments in game. Here's a true integration. Because seriously, integration these days between companies is so 10 years ago. If you know tech, you know that what we're using now is still, it's not pushing boundaries. It's not pushing limits. It's just like, I mean, for example, the vector pedals know when you, and also the SEMs know when you're standing up or sitting down on your bike. They do that with analyzing the power phase. Why not in Zwift? Why can't I connect that? And somehow when I stand up on my bike, my avatar stands up. And when I sit down, my avatar sits down. That's simple, isn't it? Why when my Di2 battery goes low, why can't Zwift tell me that? I have to go outside and ride for 5Ks and then not be able to change my front chainring.
I have a feeling... I have a feeling it's because of what Zwift is written in. I won't go into too much detail, but the integration between the hardware and the software, they picked a bad code base. It works really well, but it is working shockingly well for what they're using.
Yeah, and it explains what they're squeezing out of it for sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. But you're 100%.
Not to hang too much on Zwift, they've got their own issues, but technology in general, even smart trains just haven't changed in many years. But to answer your question about how do I get on the inside, it's just being noisy, but being also polite. I'm not out there swearing. I'm not pulling a Hambini. Let's shout out to Hambini. I don't go down that level, or I'm not seeking. Well, I guess I'm seeking the truth in what products are really like for the consumer. So I guess we're similar in that way. For me, I grab a box and say, look, on the side of this box I'm holding up, but you're a podcast, so no one knows what I'm actually holding up here. This says, plus or minus 1%. Great. Why did I have to scale it up 3% then? And is that and that is the consumer experience? N equals 1, though. That's also what I do have to acknowledge, that it's not all power meters. It's just here's a sample. But that should make the company go back and have a look at their calibration procedure. a large trainer company, I won't mention which trainer company, who was purchased by a larger other company. Now you know who I'm talking about. Most recently, they were calibrating their, might have been called the Neo, one of their new Neos. And I got two. I got one sent, and I'm like, these numbers are not right. They sent me another one. I'm like, oh, it's closer, but it's still not right. They went back through the history log of their calibration procedure, and they found the factory. They had a heat wave through the Netherlands on one of those days. And the factory temperature was right through the roof, but they were still calibrating using the same machines. And that had changed just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, that's why companies like what I do. They're like, okay, you validated that for us. And there's a ton of stuff even in the background. So hopefully any technology you've got on the bike, be it head units, be it power meters, be it smart trainers indoors, hopefully if I have a little bit of influence in making that a better experience or a better product, I'm happy. And companies acknowledge that too. So for that, I do get pre-release things, and all going to plan. I talk about them when they're public, and I just want products to be good. It makes my life so much easier. Because when they're not, it's difficult.
Do you have anything that obviously you're under NDA and a tree's worth of legal paper, but do you have any like products that are pre-released that you're like, wow, if this is done right, it can really change the game?
At the moment, let me think. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Okay, there's one, but that's not going to be helpful because I can't talk about it. There is one. One I'll talk about though from the past were the Asioma Duo Shi, they called them, which was the Asioma for Shimano SPD SL road cleats.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, everyone's been asking those since day zero of PowerMeter pedals. Everyone went to the PowerTap P1s who had pedals, and then they were like, oh, these sort of look compatible Keo cleats. What the hell? They're similar. When you clipped in, you can make them nice and tight, but just the clip-in process. I saw somebody on Reddit today ask, what's the difference between Look and Shimano road pedals? And everyone's like, oh, they're the same. I was going to contribute, but I thought, I can't be asked typing out the whole paragraph. The difference is that with Look pedals, the road pedals, you've got to sort of just angle it a little. You have to do this little tiny twist to get over this little ledge on the cleat. So it's just you nose in with the front of the pedal, twist sideways, and then it will snap in. Shimano, you can just slide straight into that sucker. You can just bam and go. So Shimano for me is a little bit better for that exact reason. There's just this little jump you've got to do with the Look style pedals. But everyone was wanting these Shimano road pedals or compatible road pedals for power. I'm like, and I had them 12 to 18 months before Asioma even announced them. So I knew they were coming. Okay. So I had the box sitting. This was ages ago. I had the box sitting on my, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. Everyone's been asking for these. Holy shit, this is going to be great content. I was so like, hell yeah. And then I left them there for a week because, I knew they were going to be 12 months out from production. So I'm like, there's no urgency here. When I got around to unboxing them, I'm like, hang on, these are a little wide. These are a little... I went through the documentation, like, it's plus 13 mil or plus 11 mil, depending on spaces and things. It's Q factor each side. Yeah. I'm like, and I was disappointed. I was seriously let down. I don't know why I'm so emotionally invested in this, but I'm like, and I'm like, I was depressed for them. I'm like, this was going to be the killer product. This was going to be so cool, but this is going to be a problem for a few people. Surprisingly enough, a few months went past, probably 6 months, and then Garmin released the Rally RS.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, hell yeah, game changed today. And that's what I said on my video. The game changes now. Garmin have beaten everyone to it. They've got an elegant pedal. I do like the look of their Vector 3s and the Rally. They're just beautiful. Mm-hmm. You can't even tell they're a power meter. Yeah. And the response was sort of like, yeah, meh, we've got Asiomas. With Look cleats, everyone's happy with those. I'm like, what? Does everyone's requirements change? Yeah, why? And then
I think part of the problem with the Garmin's was the price point. I mean, when you're talking $1,200 for the pedals, I mean the Asiomas are like $700-800. No, this is US I'm talking obviously, but they're $700-800 for the dual sided and 50% more for really the same product. Like, and you've obviously had great luck with the Asioma numbers that they've provided, so I'm not getting better numbers. So really, what am I getting for the extra $400? Is
okay, they had to hit the market earlier on. Yeah, it would have worked for sure. But that's a product that I was really excited about, which was going to change the game. But the timing was wrong and the design was wrong from Asioma. If they can redesign that pedal pod, the large sort of battery area, bring the Q factor in, and then maybe in doing that, it'll allow them to go SPD as well.
The conversations between you and Ray had to be really interesting on those because he doesn't seem to think the Q factor was as big of a deal as
Ray's a triathlete. It's okay. I'll forgive him for that. when I've ridden bikes and race bikes for 10 or 15 years, and I dial my position right down. I know exactly what each bike feels like. I'm okay with a wider Q factor on my gravel bike or a mountain bike. That's what those bikes are designed for. That's the entire setup. But when I've got my racing road bike that now can't lean as far because the cornering clearance is now compromised by a few degrees, when my position itself, my legs and my knees are changed a little bit, that to me is unacceptable as a rider. I don't think this is something, let me get on my high horse here. As a company who makes this is to me, I love Favero, let me say that. Now let me rip into them. It was a lazy design and lazy on the engineering side of things not to change the Q factor to make it more standard. And they've then passed that issue on to potentially hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of owners. That's not acceptable. The engineers should have done more work on this. The ASIOM has been out for 3 or 4 years now. I'm sure the design's been in product, in creation, or been around for a lot longer than that internally. They had that much time and a very successful product to be able to redesign everything somehow. I don't know how. I'm not an engineer. But for them just to come out and use,
I was going to say, it's definitely a valid argument because, I can speak as one of the cyclists that has never had a bike fit, but I know how my bike is going to fit. Yep. So, a lot of people, obviously you can kind of identify, and not the dog, the people in our group rides and stuff in the bike club that we belong to, but like you look at them and you're like, they just get on the bike and go. They don't really care what seat, they don't have issues. But if they get into power meters, they throw these things on, all of a sudden they have knee pain, they have hip pain, or they have something because I just changed my pedals. And a 13 mil difference. A lot of people that aren't as detail oriented are going to look at that and go,
30 mil each side too, so 26 all up. We're talking, it's like getting off a horse and you're walking like the Wild West. Your legs are really far apart. Yeah, exactly right. No, look, humans are really good at adapting. So you'll get people who have never had a bike fit and they'll get into cycling with the wrong, with one of their knees going or tracking left or tracking right or something like that. And that's how they'll ride for 100 Ks and be fine with it. But as soon as you make a large change, and that is a large change for a lot of people, it's not good. I can still ride them, but I've got to acknowledge that, okay, cool. My left knee actually gets a bit of a twinge on the outside. I can tell you that if I ride it too much. Again, I adapt after a week or two, but you should never need to compromise any of that for a product that's not doing anything. It's not performance enhancing on the bike. It doesn't make your bike go faster. If it was a new bike fit or a new handlebar or something that changed the bike enough to adapt to, be like, okay, cool. So it's this because of this, and then I get this performance. Sure. But a simple measurement device? No, they should never, ever ask someone to change their bike fit based on that. I just wish they had done better for that. It would have been a better product too. It would have been a lot better.
Absolutely.
Product. The only counter argument I'll give to that is following some bike fitters, they seem to find that a lot of their ill-fitting Q factors are too narrow. So I think that Favero may have looked at that and just said, well, is there really a point in fussing with this when most people actually could probably benefit from having a slightly wider Q factor? That's just
should be an option. But it should be an option.
You're right. It should be an option, but
it should be up to Favero to choose that option. That's an engineering decision that's gone, okay, so because of this, then that. Shimano, they make extended spindle pedals, and I think they only go out to 56 mil or 57 mil Q factor plus, and these are out to 65. It's quite big. I'm just disappointed from a technology point of view, plus also from a video, because if they were normal Q factor, I'd ride them all the time. They were like, yes, back to Shimano cleats, ASIOM Duo accuracy, cool, we're done, job done. That's what we're going to switch to. That's what they should be selling, but it wasn't quite like that. It's like a lot of technology these days. We get it. We're like, oh, that's super cool. Oh, but because of this patent here or because of this integration doesn't quite work. We get it's like local legends on Zwift. It's not local. What the hell are you doing, guys? Yeah.
Because I remember when they announced that, I was so excited. I texted Andrew right away because I love Shimano cleats too. Andrew's a look guy. And I'm like, I would use the Faveros if it wasn't for the fact that I would have to switch cleats because I have a wider foot. So that extra 10 mil of contact actually makes a big difference for me. Andrew didn't really notice much of a difference. We swapped pedals for a couple months earlier this year and did see what we noticed. And I noticed this huge difference. He was like, I kind of noticed a difference, but
I didn't notice
really
anything. I was like, cool. All right.
I'm like,
they do click in a lot nicer. I will say that. Yeah.
I mean, I went from having like almost no hotspots to hotspots every ride when I switched to the looks. And I was like, it has to do with that 10 mil extra contact patch.
Yep.
And so I was super excited. And then the Q factor comes in. I was like, well, I might be able to get away with that. I was a hockey player, so I'm a little broader anyway. The extra Q factor for me personally might not matter. But I may get on it and absolutely realize I spent $500, $600, and now my bike doesn't fit.
It's an interesting one, and that's why it's very subjective. So people are like, "Oh, you're wrong about the Q factor. Doesn't matter at all." But I'm like, "Yeah, we should still have the option. Like, if you need wider, maybe you should get some spindle spacers or something like that." And it's really interesting to see people try and justify their decision. Like, if people are associated with selling the things, and that's what it's really interesting in the comments section. Depending on what product that I cover, you'll get people coming in who have a vested interest or a financial interest in either promoting the product or making sure what I say is they try to invalidate what I say. But again, it's a case of turn the sound off, go back and look at the data, and then come back to me. The Q factor one's an interesting one because there's no true data on that. It's like, do you like it or not? There were a few reviewers out there who went, yep, no, it's not for me. There's a few others who went, yeah, it doesn't matter. And I'm sure, look, if I was for Vero, I'd probably try. And I actually went to and consulted a bike fitter, a couple of professional bike fitters, and they're like, whoa, that's huge. Not quite the use case. They said that it'll fit a few people, but not everyone. And here's the issues. If I was for Vero, I'd go out and find a few bike fitters to try and trumpet the whole, it's fine message, but they haven't done that yet. I hope they don't either, because it'll get me back in the comments. But you've really got to watch for companies. I've done a few power meter reviews where companies are resellers at the power meters, and they're like, I don't believe anything you say. I'm like, don't worry about what I say. Look at the numbers. It's actually harder to make bad numbers. It's actually harder to fake bad power numbers, especially from a power meter. You need to sort of and then consistently make that a bad power meter too. It's a fun game. Most companies are pretty good, though. For Vero, I told for Vero early on. I said within when I opened that box up, well before launch, I said to them, here's your showstopper right here, Q factor, fix this. They're like, I'm like, that's the one thing people are going to aim on for this. I'm like, guarantee it. And then
it's a polarizing topic because, like you said,
it is.
It's either you're focused on that and it's like, I'm never going to use that because of that, or you're like, whatever, I'm good.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the things I was curious about when watching your videos, you've obviously pretty much used the Faveros to compare other power meters. How'd you decide that one was worthy of testing other power meters against?
Good question. The first power meter I had wasn't at all very good to test anything against, not even myself. The first power meter I had used to shut off after 17 degrees. If we got it set above 17 degrees Celsius, power's gone. Trying to debug that, holy wow, I could not figure out why this power, and it was only months and months later that I figured out, because most of the rides during that time of year were never above 70 degrees, and then as soon as it got about 70 degrees, bang, the power meter would shut off. It was an old power tap hub. Saris did replace that though, so I was happy with that.
Was it designed for like indoor track cyclists?
It must have been. It was just they couldn't figure it. I couldn't figure it out. But then when I matched the data to the head unit I was using, I'm like, hang on, there's a consistency there. And then indoors, I put the heater on that. Yep, it used to cut off at that temperature.
Wow.
Bizarre. Look, what is the source of truth? That's an interesting question. Consistency. I do about 400 comparative tests a year. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've got the analyzer tool up here. Yeah, just a few. Like what you see is only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much other stuff happening behind the scenes. Plus, also verification tests. Because if I'm saying, okay, well, I've switched bikes, I've switched cranks, I've changed pedals. This smart trainer isn't quite accurate. I'm like, well, how do I know it's not accurate, or how do I know something hasn't changed on the bike? So then I go back and do further testing of things I've already tested, compare those results, and go. Consistency is the key, but also there's external things such as static weight tests. We can hang weights off pedals and check if they're within spec. It's harder with pedals. One thing people don't talk about with pedals as well is that there's twice as many things that can go wrong, because pedal-based power meters are 2 power meters. So if your pedal if one is off, or one is high, or one is low, that impacts the results. Funnily enough, only by half, because it's halved with the But if you've got a spider-based power meter, if you can hang a weight off those, it's just another independent source of accuracy. Aciomas have been proven to be, my testing, people say, oh, you've done a really good review. I'm like, don't worry about my reviews. Go and look at the customer reviews. Go and look at what everyone else is posting about them. Like a product, I don't even need, like, it came from a very small company. This is a show about Favero, isn't it? Very small company. They did the B Pros. So the Asioma Duos aren't their first rodeo. They did the B Pros in the past, but they come along and just made a product that had no PR. I don't think they even had any social media when the Faveros just took off, because they just work. But they're just consistent against the known good meters that I've had. So the old Neo 1, they worked with that. The newer Kickers, they were equal to that. Some other good spider-based power meters, the Power to Max and Gico, they work with that. just really good consistency. So it comes down to the quality of the data too. So no dropouts, cadence not going through the roof, and also consistency across normal use cases, which is what the Llama Lab Test tests out. I'm testing from, I think, 150 watts up to 450 watts steady state for some overs and unders, and also some peak powers with the sprints, and also a small ramp test. The interesting one, though, is the steady state 200 watts into the 250 watts of the Llama Lab Test. If you ever see me sort of focusing on that, the reason why it's so long, not just a 30-second interval or a 45-second interval or even a 2-minute interval, some power meters have some interesting oscillation issues with cadence because there's no magnet there. It's got to know, sort of guesses where cadence is. And I've had some power meters just sort of drift up and down. In peak was one of them. And I sent over the data, but you can only really see this once you back out and look at the overall picture of 10 minutes, not just 30 seconds or 2 minutes. So you'll see it do something really weird. So yeah, that kind of data, as long as I'm not seeing those kind of inconsistencies across power zones and things, the power meter is usually pretty good. But you always have to question a power meter, even if it's a good one. SRM's a good example. They're no longer the gold standard. Sorry, SRM. But SRM are no longer in the conversation either. If you've noticed that, when people at Bike Club are like, what power meter do you get? 15 years ago, it was SRM or die. That's it. Nothing else. SRM. Bang. They're the gold standard. Nowadays, they're just not even in that conversation. People like us, Veros, vectors, stages. There we go. Yeah.
I was going to say part of it, I think, is because there's so many more options now too, but so many more power meters have gotten better and cheaper. So you don't have to spend $2,000 on a power meter anymore. You can get a pretty good power meter for $400. Granted,
Stages you have the game. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you have either a spider or a group set that works with the compatible lower price point options, but you don't have to spend a fortune on your power meter anymore. Where at one point you didn't have an option.
My first,
or you were going to get bad numbers.
My first SRM was $2,600. I think third or fourth hand, way back in the day. And even that wasn't accurate. It had to be recalibrated. They do have a calibration service. You can send it back to the factory, which is kind of cool. But it's interesting. But I'm glad to see the prices come down. As I mentioned there, the stages changed the game with a single-sided left. Easy to swap over yourself. But pedals have again changed the game once again because people can just buy a box of pedal. Like the little box that they come in now. Your do I have the box here to show? No, it's not within reach. Your Garmin Vectors or your Garmin Rally just come in a small little box. Bang, you can install them yourself and off you go. Yeah, it's just easy. Spiders, a little bit harder.
So, outside of things you can't talk about, what's kind of the future for your channel?
Well, hopefully we have COVID version 2 hit and the channel goes through the roof again. No, I'm only joking.
I mean, it's a joke, but it's a legit concern, I think.
Well, I was lucky. March 18th at 2 p.m. Our time here in Australia in 2020, when someone got locked down or the entire world went into lockdown, my channel went through the roof because I had a 3 or 4 year library of how to ride indoors, how to explain erg mode, how to set up your indoor setup. Just all that library of content was there, and it went through the roof. Did really, really well. It rode the spike and then rode the spike down too. The channel's just going to keep ticking along. I think I've got a good formula. People know what they're going to get. Delivery is always the same. It's always straight product introduction, tech specs. Pretty much, if it's something that's new, I'll try and get within the first 30 seconds to a minute of here's what's new, here's what you want to know. Like if you don't want to watch the rest of the video, I get that. Cool. I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos myself, but I do want to know, is my Shimano group set going to be compatible with my trainer, or what's the new features of this new Garmin head unit? Tell me what's different, and then I'll choose to watch the rest or not. So I just have to wait for companies to make cool stuff. I think Ray says, just make cool shit. That's pretty much the same as mine. Ray and I do very similar content. We're great mates. We share a lot of notes. And we just have to wait for companies to make cool stuff. Just the other day, Activity Fix for Strava, activityfix.com, if people don't know about that. Somebody made a little add-on for Strava that can auto-assign your bike. You can assign shoes. And it's an if this, then that, IFTTT. Is it the site for Strava? Yeah. You can change you can add descriptions automatically. You can assign your gears automatically. You can say, hey, if it's this power meter, then put a little tag there. It's a programming language for Strava. Someone made that. I made a little video on it, and the site went down within 2 hours, which was awesome. I /dotted it. Does everybody know the reference there? I /dotted something.
I do, yeah.
I was pretty proud of that.
That's a goal for a lot of people. Like,
oh yeah. To get /dotted. Yeah. I was pretty happy but also I'm like, that's good for my business because that shows that, hey, if companies want eyes on something, come to me. Like if it's interesting and I want to talk about it too. I get lots and lots of queries about, can you cover this? Can you cover this? I'm like, I need to be using something myself. I need to actually jump on and use it. I need to be like, if you want me to cover a bike light and I'm not riding at night at the moment, I can't go and make content just for content's sake. Like, it's got to be something that I need hands on with. This Strava thing, I'm like, hell yeah, this is super cool. But yeah, the site went down. Strava jumped on that pretty quickly and upped the API limits, which was handy for them. I sent a thank you to Strava. They're still not talking to me after my local legends rant. But I reached out. It was all good. PowerMeter reviews. I've got a set formula for that. People know what to expect with the Llama Lab Test. I do give things a pass or a fail on the Llama Lab Test, or I really don't even need to. You see it in the data. You see if they're accurate or not. Or I always say, here's where things are at. I've reached out to the company. It's not accurate here. It's accurate here. Let's see where they go with the firmware updates, et cetera, et cetera. There's been absolutely next to no new smart trainers come along. Having said that, I've got 3 sitting in the hallway, but they're not big brand ones. So they'll get a few views, but not a lot. That's about it, really. I'm just going to continue looking for cool things that are interesting. I try to steer away from the clickbait side of things. I try to steer away from controversy because I can't be asked getting through the comments. I go to all the comments, everyone who I read every single comment, and I block every single idiot who comes along. And you've hit the nail on the head with like a wider reach content where you get people who don't know who you are commenting. They'll comment that I'm either bald or I speak too fast or I'm an Aussie or something like that. I'm like, great, this content's done. It's getting a further reach, and block. Because a lot of people, I've got a great little community of viewers and followers. I think we're 161,000 subs over on YouTube. There's a lot of people who are in there who are consistently answering questions or contributing their experience, and I really appreciate that too. So it's a great resource. If you see my review on, say, the Kicker Core, you can go into the reviews or go into the comments, and you get the general vibe. Is this a good trainer or not? Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. People know what to expect. No surprises. Is there a pivot for my channel coming? We'll have to wait and see. If something new comes along. Depends if Peloton want to sue me again for using the word Peloton. Depending if some company out of Germany wants to sue me for putting chevrons on a shirt and send me an 83-page legal document and $5,000 worth of fines from a company I've never heard of before.
Don't even get me started on Peloton. They're using if they do want to come at us, we're small. We're the world's smallest cycling podcast that next to nobody knows about, but a few people do. But I always joke about that. What do I say? The world's the number one Pittsburgh-based cycling podcast. Yeah,
there we go.
Hosted by 2 non-pros. So I get pretty deep in the weeds there. But
it's like a baseball stat.
But Peloton, they're using it for a treadmill, not even a bicycling entity. Yeah, like, come on, you guys are just grossly abusing this word now and just devaluing everything. On the upside, it's a great business model. They own the customer experience start to finish, which is just brilliant. My Zwift setup I've got behind me here, my indoor setup, I've got, I think, 25 or 26 different vendors involved in, because it's an elite trainer I've got set up at the moment. I have a kicker desk. I have an Elgato this. I have a different heart rate strap from Pole. I've got this power meter. I've got that bike. It's just so many things involved with the Peloton. They own that customer experience, which is brilliant. Investors know this. That's why they got the market share, and they've got a ton of money, so that's all good. But yeah, so those guys coming at me, that was pretty funny. But I turned around, like, my legal fees as the channel, that's the 3rd or 4th time somebody's tried to start legal action against me. I'm like, come on, guys, I'm a tech channel. What the hell? But it's just, if you stick your head up high enough, someone's going to take a shot for whatever reason. If you're successful, whatever, they'll just have a crack. But it's funny. The trademark troll out of Germany the other week was a really interesting one. I kept low on that because I just don't want to make my channel about my struggles. Yeah. But I pretty much turned around and tell them to go. I use certain Australian words that are only 4 letters, and a number of those in the email. They haven't got back to me. So my legal fees for running what I do have been zero. They're interesting words. I'm sure people know exactly what we're talking about. But I gave it to this guy. I'm like, you're coming at me for what? I've never heard of you. I'm not trying to exploit your brand or your logo. I adhere to everything. I won't get too deep in the weeds, but it's behind the scenes. Every company, I guess, goes through this as well. Yeah. But I can't believe what companies try on. But I'm still like, come at me.
come at me. Like, give it a shot. F off. And here's why. And I'll use the one tool that I have is a following on social media. And I use that for Peloton. I'm like, okay, I'm going to play the underdog role here. I'll play the underdog card because I am. You're coming at me as a multi-billion-dollar company. I've got a few cameras and a small little front room for what I do and a lot of passion for what I do. And I've got my followers online. I said, I'm going to turn everyone against you. And this is here's how it's going to play out. Here's the playbook that I'm going to, and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's exactly how it played out. And if you type in Peloton Sue's YouTuber, bang, it's there. It's going to be there forever. They've tarnished what they've done for that. Idiots. But the company out of Germany is another fun one. I put a little bit of that on the Instagram and got a massive response. I could have milked that for views and things like that, but it's just...
underestimate the power of a following. Yeah.
But wasn't it about bikes? Wasn't it about going out and riding bikes? Yeah. Where did that stop? It's a fun game.
So obviously you've got things that you're testing that are pre-released, but what do you think the future of like some of the tech is going to be? I mean, we talked power meters for probably way too much of the podcast, but they really haven't changed much. We're seeing some changes in the indoor trainers to a point. I mean, we're seeing additional features thrown on, and like some of them are starting to put hardwire outlets on so that you have more reliable data coming through for whether you're racing or working out. But what do you feel, again, outside of what the pre-release products are that you've got?
I don't think we'll see much change to the experience of cycling. I think cycling is pretty easy. A pedal comes up, you push it down, and in doing that, the other one comes up, and you push that one down. There's cycling explained. It's as easy as that. You want to go faster, do that faster, and do that harder. That's it. Pedals go up, down. Indoors, I think we've reached the pinnacle of where smart trainer technology can get to for ride feel. I don't think there's any more focus on that. It's good enough. Give me the old Le Mans Revolution feel though on a smart trainer. I'd love that. The Le Mans Revolution, I still love that trainer. It's very loud though. Technology wise, where they need to head, and I haven't seen any indication of this other than, look, I've seen Jet Black integrated a heart rate bridge for their trainer, which was pretty neat. So you put a heart rate strap on, pair it to your trainer, and then your trainer has one single connection to everything else. Brilliant. Cool. That's outside of the box. It's still technology from 10 years ago, I think, using Bluetooth and Amp Plus and bridging things across. We see the Kicker 5 have the direct connect port, which switches it to a network-based protocol. People are saying it's all hardwired. It's hardwired. The first thing I did is put my little Google access point behind it and made it wireless, because as soon as it's on your home network, you can make it wireless. I think the next step, though, would be for trainers is just to integrate all that connection. It's a pain in the ass having Amp Plus, Bluetooth, dual Bluetooth, Amp Plus, dropping out, Amp Plus FEC. Too hard. Switch them onto Wi-Fi. Like if you unbox anything these days from Google, anything these days from Apple, it's got a Wi-Fi chip in there. 5 gig Wi-Fi is reliable enough. You're not going to have dropouts. It's usually pretty good. People are saying, "Oh, let's move away from wireless." That's not the answer. The direct connect hardwire connection is a stopgap. Has to be. No one has Ethernet cables these days. Nobody has an Ethernet point to plug stuff into on their home network. What are they thinking? It's nerds. Okay,
I know.
I do too, but I'm not
myself,
the norm.
Yeah.
But so I'm hoping to see companies move towards just an easy integration of this tech. So you just switch, you just leave your small. I mean, what's smart about smart bikes? Really, they're just smart trainers on a frame. A smart bike for me would have Wi-Fi connectivity that would auto update its firmware. It would call home. I'd get messages saying, "Oh, by the way, you need to service this now. You've ridden 5,000 Ks on this bike. Here's what you do for servicing." It should then connect all my sensors. So then when I start up Zwift or RGT or Trainer Road, it should say, "Okay, here's your equipment. Done. Click that box. We're done." It should just integrate. So I'd love to see things go Wi-Fi. That comes into certification and things like that. But
I can say the potential issue for that would be actually in the US specifically. A lot of our ISPs provide wireless routers. I don't know how it works outside of the US, but they're often not great. People don't realize it. They keep the same technology for God knows how long. They lease these units from Comcast or Xfinity or that's the same company. But Verizon or whoever, and they never update it. So whenever you have all these products coming out, I'm a nerd. I mean, everyone pretty much knows that's ever met me, and I'm very particular about how my network is set up and things like that. But whenever it comes to let's just say my parents or friends of mine that are non-tech sector, I look at their like setups and I'm like, oh, good God, man, you're running, a DOCSIS 2 modem. Like you don't even know that you're breached at like 100 megs a second. Like,
Yep.
you're only using A, B, G, and N, or not even N, just G. It's one of those things. So like, I would agree with you. The Wi-Fi from a network perspective would make it makes everything so much better. But also at the same time, I think their tech support lines would blow up because you have, mid 40 teachers that are like, just not that they want to just get their ride in. I can think of one specific individual that, she just wants to get a ride in, and, the tech blows up and it's just like, just walk away.
It's already happening with Ant Plus and Bluetooth. Someone's got their 2.4 set to say channel 10. That's blasting away. They do a file transfer. Someone loads Netflix. I think going to the way I see it is like you unbox a Google Home Mini and just set it up. It's like bling, it boots up. You just use your phone. Next. I think they need to go with that for trains. That kind of simplicity. I think it would still be. It'll take us forward anyway. A lot of people are saying no, back to hard wires. No, hard wires are gone
for the high end racing.
Probably, but now you're talking
absolutely.
such a small percent. Like the racing side of it is just tiny. It's spoken about a lot more than the actual popularity of it. A lot of people do race. That's cool. I get that. But the majority of people just want stuff to just turn on and work. And recently, that just hasn't been the case with a lot of technology.
Yeah.
Power meter wise, though, I don't think we can see anything further. We've got advanced metrics on a few of the power meters coming out now, but nobody knows what to really do with those extra metrics. Pedal stroke analysis, that's kind of cool. Leomo came out with some sensors and a head unit that actually detects your pedal stroke, like right down to, I think it's 50 hertz, maybe even 100 hertz.
Wow.
Pretty cool stuff. You can like eliminate dead spots and all that, but at the end of the day, people are like, no, it doesn't. Maybe if you're sort of right at the high end of national level competition or above, it's just not easy. It's sort of like aero sensors. They're really difficult to set up, get good quality data. Would everybody benefit from the data they could put out? Yeah, sure. Everyone can get faster. Everyone could pedal a little smoother, but it needs to be consumable and just sort of Apple or Google easy out of the box. And a lot of the tech we're seeing just isn't that at all. It's getting better, but definitely not fast enough. I mean, what are we almost in? It's only 100 days or so away from 2022. Can you believe it? We haven't got flying cars?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, the Jetsons were so wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to
so right in so many ways.
So hope for new technology. I hope there's tons of new technology coming out because that's sort of what pays the bills for me. I cover something interesting on YouTube. It does better, gets the views. Yep, it's all good. I don't see any major phase shifts. Zwift are talking about hardware, but again, COVID times, that's delayed. And then are they just going to make themselves another kicker? We've seen a lot. I mean, Wahoo made the kicker back in 2013, 2014. A lot of other companies just went out and made themselves a kicker as well. And we're still seeing that to this day. Companies are making like similar to the kicker, almost 10 years later. The Neo was ahead of its time, though. So I'll give them credit there. That really was ahead of its time, how it's
with
designed.
The road feel and everything.
Yep, even though road feel's a bit of a gimmick. The virtual flywheel, that was pretty cool. Not perfect, but a pretty neat little product and what they could potentially do with it.
Yeah. So has your relationship with, we've mentioned him before, Ray, DC Rainmaker, has that helped in your channel and things like that? I mean, Ray is super data focused, and I love the app that he had built. I was actually looking at some of the code for it, but I got that nerdy. But has that improved things and really helped your relationship and helped you guys both grow?
It's handy having somebody who's under the same NDAs as me to shoot the breeze with. Like, are you also see? Because a lot of the time I'll see something and the company's like, nope, that's wrong. Oh, you've done this wrong. And if I know that Ray's under the same NDA or there's the same agreements or just sort of the pre-release stuff, I'll be like, hey, Ray, are you also seeing this? He'd be like, yeah. I'm like, great, there's two of us. Let's go get them. let's report this back. Let's show them. So it's really handy to have someone to shoot the breeze with like that. I told Ray early on over at Eurobike, I'm like, I'm going to start covering a lot of the same stuff you do. I don't want to step on your toes, though. You're known as the blah, the watch, the triathlon, the swimming, the all-rounder sports tech. I'll be more cycling focused. Ray's like, yeah, cool. Yeah. And like any contacts that I have, like we just help each other out with what we do. And I mean, there's a few of us doing that now, which is kind of cool. We don't step on each other's toes. We cover the same kind of stuff, but people like with YouTubers or like with when you add a personality to it or someone's history or someone's background to it, people know that like if it's something's going to be really, really shit, I might tee off on it. And you'll get that. If something's super cool, look out, you'll get that too. So yeah, everyone has their own little niches. I've got the Llama Lab Test. Ray does his 30-30s and a few other tests outdoors with his 3 or 4 power meters. It's just like I'm really good friends. Like if I to go over to the Netherlands, I stay with Ray and the family. He came over here. I think the last time we caught up was at Tour Down Under 2020, before COVID, just before COVID kicked in. But I'm over there at the DCR Open Caves, and we catch up. There's a lot of crossovers what we do. So yeah, no, it's a good friendship. Ray's a good mate.
Yeah, so your 2 sites are actually the ones that allowed me to arrive at the trainer that's in the room just over there. But
not the green one, I hope.
No, God, no. That has been promptly returned and refunded already.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for the refund. I appreciate it. No, I went with the Saurus hammer.
Okay, yep.
The
Erg mode, the Erg mode king. I'll give that the crown, the Erg mode king. I think in my review, that's one of the trainers that for my 450 watt zones, the Neo 2T will just hit you like a truck. You go from 150 to 450 in Erg. Boom! If you're not there, it's going to kick you like so far backwards. Yeah. Whereas the Saurus H3, it's like, okay, you're at 150. I'm just going to slowly bring you up within a few seconds to 450. And here we are. We're at 450. Hold, and I'll let go of that. It's a beautiful experience to be in pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I looked at Ray's because I actually I think mine's an H2.
Okay. Yep.
I don't remember. It's an older model, but I was looking at it, and Ray's review of the H3 was like, "This is going to be short because it's just quieter. It's that same great experience, super consistent, everything." And then your review was pretty much the same. It was like
it's so American too, though. It's built like what we call a brick shit house over here.
Yeah.
It's like a tank.
I picked that thing up. I was like, "Holy shit, is this sturdy?" And granted, I only had one. This was only a couple of weeks ago, but I picked it up and I was like, "Ooh, man, I can feel that in my left collarbone. That's not good."
Yep.
But so. Yeah, I mean, I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here, and hopefully everyone's still awake, but that's listening, and thank you for listening this far. But we tend to end every interview with a question that we don't list intentionally because we're Richards like that. Bad joke. Anyhow, I'll let Nick ask this one.
Yeah, so our normal episodes end with the same segment. That's a dream bike segment. So you don't, it's been a while since you've really done any bike type of exposure other than the gravel bike. But if you had one dream bike, money was not an option or an issue, what would that dream bike be?
Well, it's going to have to be the gravel bike because that's where I've been on for the last 12 months and absolutely loving it, just away from the traffic. And we have so many gravel ride options around here. I mean, I'm a roadie at heart. So, yeah, people are thinking, some sort of TT bike. Yeah, boring. I've suffered enough on TT bikes now. I've moved on. Road bikes, I would have gone the SL7, but let's not talk of the SL7 at the moment in this year and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to have to be back to a gravel bike. Similar to the one I have, except the next model up, it'll be the Espero 5 that has the hidden front cable. So I've got the one with the front cable hanging off the front.
So you have the easy one to work on. You want the hard one to work on.
Yeah. And I'd go with the same configuration as I went with because I just wanted to build up the dream gravel bike. And that's the SRAM Red with the Eagle axis up the back. No front derailleur, no need to. It's just a one by.
Yeah.
The 303s are super light and super fast. I have the options to go through the 650Bs, which I put on a couple of weeks ago. They're a heap of fun. If you just want to have fun and bike and bounce around.
It's like a monster truck.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, for a gravel bike. I mean, mountain bikers are probably laughing, going, "What the hell are you talking about? Yeah, we've been doing this stuff ages."
Well,
But for me, I love the drop bar sort of, and the technology. There's so much crossover between the road and gravel too. So I'd go the Espero 5. I'd go the same setup. Power meter wise. What power meter would I put on that? Probably a high-end Power to Max. I just like the PowerMax NG coast just worked for me. I'd probably move away from the pedals. I probably wouldn't go PowerMeter pedals on a gravel bike or a mountain bike, even though I advocate them. They work fine. I haven't had any issues with them.
Is that like an environmental thing, or because you're prone to more
spiders just are a little better protected?
It is. That's it. It's just and I know, as I said, with the Faveros, they can cut grass and you get grass stuck between the pods.
It's happened.
And also you can run nice light pedals. I've got some Exustar, whatever they are, M-Force 8s, I think, super light SPD pedals. Yeah. So again, you can drop some weight that way. Bottom bracket. Let's go to all the details. Bottom bracket. Wheels manufacturing. I like their stuff.
Super nerdy.
Oh, yeah, I love wheels.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are familiar with those. Fantastic. Yep. Because they change just a press-in cup to a threaded, pretty much. You thread in the cups and then they just seem to work.
Press fit's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So that's now solved with these. I mean, there's many other companies do the same sort of thing, but they seem to work pretty well. That's probably about it, really. Just an Aspero 5 with a nice, high-end SRAM setup for the 1x, just for the simplicity. On the road, I'll always be 2x. Always 2x on the road.
Andrew and I've had that conversation a few times. I don't see current technology taking the 1x or taking the front derailleur off.
Too wide.
Yeah.
Yeah. For gravel, I mean, because you're grinding anyway, you're used to jump. You might jump 10 RPM or maybe 15 RPM, depending on what gearing you change. You're like, I'm used to that. I can grind up this. I'm expecting that. Whereas on the road, when you really fine tune, especially for a TT, you just fine tune that cadence up or down, probably 3 RPM or even 2 RPM. You just want that change. On my disc wheel, I run a 2111, I think. So there was like one cog, which is beautiful for flat TTing. Anyway, we're off topic now. Aspero 5, full SRAM red setup, some zip wheels, nice and light. I'd go hookless, tubeless. I'm happy with hookless, tubeless. People are like, oh, hookless, are they going to pop up? I haven't had any issues, touch wood.
I mean, they will if you pump them up to like 120, but
or put the wrong size tire on.
Or a beaded tire.
The technology is getting a little better. The standards are sort of coming sort of more into line. But and then it all comes down.
The cycling industry doesn't like standards.
They're too slow. I think Ray talks about this in his State of the. Yeah, Ray talked about this in his State of the Nation talk with Garmin the other week about standards. They are too slow to move, and a lot of companies now are financial. They're just islands. You just see them; they build their own technology and sort of don't really share. They want to keep their own profits for themselves and not.
Oh, sorry. Must be getting COVID.
Hopefully, it's COVID too, so that we see another spike in the channel. Yeah,
it's what is it? The X variant now. I guess.
Yeah.
I forgot, but there's too many of them now.
Or Y or W. I don't know.
WTF version. That's the one.
Yeah. WTF.
Anyway, that's my answer to summarize about the third time. Aspero 5. I like that.
Good choice. Good choice. I like that.
But it's all about how you use it too. It's all about how you use the tool. Bikes are never trophies, and be prepared to lay it down.
I think the Aspero's really one of those gravel bikes that could eliminate the N+1 rule, because you could throw 28s on that on your 303s and you'd have a pretty kicking road bike too.
It's a very road focused gravel bike for sure, which for me is perfect. I don't want to go hardcore. Yeah. I don't want big relax. I'm not doing all day touring. I'm just going out there and blasting on the bike for an hour, 2 hours. It works really, really well. So a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a '90s mountain bike." I'm like, no, not quite. But I do
more
like
aggressive than that.
I do like the technology that's coming over to gravel and the mixture, and people are also choosing their own adventures now too. They're like, I've got Strava, I'll just follow this route here, and mapping on head units is getting nice. You can just go out and get lost in the forest and get home safely. It's great.
Yep,
that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I mean, we love the content and the passion that you output, and it's one of the reasons we're subscribed personally.
So make sure listeners that you check out Shane on his YouTube channel, GP Llama. If you're looking for a review of power meters, anything tech, we've personally used his reviews to make buying decisions. So we can't speak highly enough of you. So we really appreciate you taking some time and coming on and chat and shop with us.
No worries. I can talk about this stuff all day long. So it feels like we're going to be talking for 5 minutes. So no,
I know. I agree.
If you want to see some behind the scenes stuff, check out my Instagram as well. I hide in plain sight, GP Llama everywhere. So Instagram, Twitter. You'll get a few things from left field, maybe some things I'm testing in the background. One of the upcoming power meters was on one of my recent videos. There's a few Easter eggs I throw in here and there, and I'm always throwing shade towards Peloton because they tried to sue me. So just watch for those little things. We have a bit of a laugh with every now and
even
then.
have really good kid helmet advice and push bike advice. So I may have followed or tried to follow the helmet advice. But
here's a funny one. I had Cask send over their new Wasabi helmet the other day, and I'm like, I've got a really weird shaped head. So probably send me a large. They sent me a medium, and this thing is tiny. I'm like, I can't really review this tiny helmet. It doesn't even fit on my head. My 2-year-old. I'm like, hey Max, let's just plonk. Holy wow. So if you see my Instagram, I might have put it up the other day. I'm not sure.
I saw it.
It might have been a story. I've now got a product tester for me. Max, little Max Miller is now my, if you just can't put out 200 watts over the Llama
you
Lab
must be
Test.
big time outsourcing like that now.
It's going to be great. And he doesn't charge either. There's no fees for him.
That's amazing.
Although he's living rent free, so there are some fees.
There we go. Interest in audio editing, by any chance?
I wish you could edit videos. It takes up most of my time.
My 6-year-old has no interest in editing audio right now, so it's like, oh man, I got to find somebody else. But, thanks again.
Good.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, Shane, and
thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review wherever you listen and tell your friends. It helps us get more listeners just like you. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and even Twitter. If you are enjoying this podcast and want us to continue to bring you entertaining guests and talk about interesting things, please consider contributing to us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. We're always open to suggestions for new topics, advice, and interviews. If you have a topic or a question you'd like to hear about, be sure to drop us a line at 5339cycling.com/topics or email us at info@5339cycling.com. Hammer on, everybody.